Hello, Year 6, and welcome back to the flipped classroom. This time we are looking at something called patterns and rules. Rules, patterns and rules, such as a new Year 6 rule. You must bring Mr. Sheehan every day a piece of cheesecake. That's the rule. And the pattern is that it must have a nice pattern. Okay. Trust me, that's the new rule. Okay. Patterns and rules. Not that. Wrong. How do you like my new pen? Pretty sweet, huh? But patterns and rules is actually more about code breaking. Oh dear. Code breaking. So that's what we're going to be looking at this week, such as a secret Year 6 code. How do you get lots of bonuses? You bring Mr. Sheehan cheesecake. Okay, begin! Now, we're going to start with a pattern like this. 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. All right, here's what you're going to write on your cheat sheet first, which is find Mr. Sheehan cheesecake. The rule to bring Mr. Sheehan cheesecake. Here's the rule. Whenever you move to the next number, what happens? You probably have enough brain cells to work out that it is +2. That's what you do every time to these numbers to move through the pattern. There you go. So find the rule is +2. Now that is what we call what I'm calling the simple rule, okay? That's the one that you can see just by looking at a sequence. It's going up. It's either going up, so it's add something, or it's going down. It's minus something. So that's the simple rule. Now, here's a bit of info you're going to need to write on a cheat sheet as well. We don't call, when it's a pattern, we don't call these numbers numbers. We call them terms, okay? Because that helps us from being confused. So in your maths books, at the top, you'll see term above a pattern, and it'll be term 1, term 2, 3, 4, 5. So I might say, what is the fourth term in this pattern? And the fourth term is number 9. What is the second term? Number 5. And that becomes important later when we don't just do simple rules, but we do tough rules. This pen is really great. I'm loving it. I wrote tough in hot pink. So later on, you can write this on your cheat sheet as well. Term, we're going to use a shortcut. We're just going to call it T. All right, that's going to become important later. Okay, good. Now that we figured out the rule was +2 for this pattern, the simple rule. Now we're going to work out the tough rule, the full rule. I'm just going to write our terms up here. T for term. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Now, we figured out that it was +2. The simple rule. Simple was add 2. Based on the last term, you add 2. Based on 5, you add 2 at 7. Add 2 to 7, you get 9. Add 2 to 9, you get 11. So that is the simple rule. Now, here's the other thing I want you to write on your cheat sheet. How do you get from the term, whatever number term it is, how do you get from that number to the number in the pattern? That is the tough rule. The tough rule is getting from the term to the number in the pattern. What do you do to the number? Okay? And for that, we're going to use the shortcut whatever you do to the term. This is whatever term it is, You do something to it, and it becomes that number. So the thing is that it needs to work for all of the terms. So you might think, oh, to get to 1 from 1 to 3, you just add 2. But if you try that with this one, you add 2, it doesn't work. So it can't be just add 2, because 2 plus 2 is 4, not 5. So we need to think of a better rule for this. And have a think. See if you can figure out how to get from 1 to 3, 2 to 5, 3 to 7, 4 to 9. It'll all be the same thing. You'll be doing something to the term to make it that. I'll give you a clue. The first step is to double it. Okay, all of these you start by doubling. And then you do something else to all of them as well. 3, double it, 6, and then you add 1. Let's see if that works for all of them. 4, double it is 8, add 1 is 9. Tick. Let's check again. 5, double it is 10, plus 1 is 11. So there we go. What do we do to each term? We double the term. Just to make it clear, I'll put that in brackets because that's the first thing. And then you add 1. So that is our tough rule. Whatever the term is, you times it by 2, and then you add 1 to get the number in the pattern. So these are the terms in a pattern, the different numbers in there. How do you get from the whatever term it is, whatever order it is in the pattern, how do you get to that actual number in the pattern? And for this one, we double it and add 1. Okay, let's do another example. New pattern, let's do 4, 8, 10, no, whoops, 12, forget I said that, 12, 16, 21. Now, the simple rule, based on whatever the last number was, is to get from 4 to 8, you just add 4. 8 to 12, you add 4. So the simple rule is just add 4. Whatever the last term was, you just add 4. Let's write in now our terms. First, second, third, fourth, fifth term, fifth number in the pattern. And now for our tough rule, using whatever the term is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even up to whatever the 6th, 7th, 8th, 100th term is. Using that, how do you get to what is in the pattern? So from 1 to 4, you can't just add 3 because 2 add 3 would be 5 and 3 add 3 would be 6, and that doesn't equal what's down here. So let me have a think. You could times it by something. What could you times it by? Times it by 4, times it by 4, times it by 4. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. That's why. Here we go. 20. That should be the pattern because 16 plus 4 is 20. There we go. Now we can find a rule because times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. It all works. So whatever the term is, you times it by 4, and that is the number in the pattern. That's our rule. T times 4. And because it'll work for any term in the pattern, I could say, what is the fourth term in that pattern? And you could say, well, the fourth term, that would be 4 times 4. That would be 16. And you would be right. Look at that, you're a genius. Because I'm a genius. If I said, what is the 50th term in this pattern? You could say, well, the term is 50. And whatever term it is, you times it by 4, just like this rule here. And that number in the pattern would be 200. So you wouldn't need to add 4, add 4, add 4 to keep working out the pattern. You just need to know whatever the term was that you're looking for. You use the rule, you plug it in, and then you get an answer. And you too have 1,000 brain cells, times 1,000,000, like me. Okay, good. So year 6, on your cheat sheet, you should now have something like this. First, you find the simple rule, which is what happens I'm going to cough. Fair warning. What happens each time? And by that I mean, in the pattern, let's use one we had before. 4, 8, 12, 16. How do you get up there? What do you do? That's the simple rule. And it's always going to be a plus or a minus. Okay? So this week you're going to have to learn how to find the simple rule. And then we're also going to learn, this is the second part of it, finding the tough rule. Which is, what can you do to the term every time? And by that I mean, how can you work out whatever order the number is, whatever term it is, how do you get from that to the actual number in the pattern? And that's useful for figuring out way, way, way down the pattern what might happen. So what can you do to the term every time? And because we're using a term, we're using a shortcut, T for term. And we found out in this pattern that every time, all you have to do is times by 4. It's getting kind of squashed in here. I'm glad I have different colors. And a sweet pen, did I mention that? So every time, all you have to do is times the term by 4, and that will give it to you. Other times you'll have a rule that'll be like t times 3, but then you also minus 1. Or maybe you'll have a rule, whatever the term is, times 50 and add 75. We might get into that later. Okay? All these are rules to help us figure out something later down in the pattern. Okay? Bring your cheat sheet to school tomorrow with any questions, and I will see you then. Goodbye! Oh, also, balloons! Balloons!